Good evening. I'm Dr. Fred Rouse. It's currently Wednesday. Where are we at here? May 6th, actually. And I'm going to do today's daily recap of events that affect the way you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. And the question for today is there a disconnect? I'll get to that in just a few minutes. For now, we always start out with the numbers. What's going on with the COVID cases right now, because that's the biggest thing in the news. It's been that way actually since January, but in all intents and purposes since basically March 1. So right now the current COVID cases top 1,223,000. Okay, that's a really big number. Okay, the deaths right now in the United States are over 72,000 deaths in just 10 weeks. The death rate is basically 6%, 5.95%, so that if you contract COVID, there's basically a 6% chance you're going to die from it. Small percentage have recovered, not that many, less than 200,000. Okay, which is not bad, but it's not great. Okay, New York State has 321,000 cases, 25,000 deaths, over 25,000 deaths. And New York City has 175,000 cases by itself. New Jersey still comes in with the second highest number of cases, currently 131.8 thousand cases right now, and just about 8,500 deaths, a little bit more than 8,500 deaths. Now, New York and New Jersey have been the epicenters of things, and they pretty much shut those states down, and their numbers are dropping down. Okay, both those states, the numbers are pretty much dropping down, so they're doing a decent job with that. It's not pleasant being there, but they're doing a decent job to get the numbers there. The rest of the country, the numbers are going up big time. Okay, and we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes here. But each one of these deaths, okay, is a major tragedy for somebody. It's an individual, a family, somebody. And what we've been doing is every day, we just mentioned a few of these people to let you know that there are real people here. Real people behind the numbers. There's real names to these people. Okay, now, one of them was probably one of the most impassioned advocates of social justice, was Michael Sorkin, 71. He's a big champion of social justice, sustainability in architecture and urban planning. He emerged as one of the profession's most incisive public intellectuals over a multifaceted career as a critic, author, teacher, designer. Sorkin was an architectural gadfly, basically, and he was really known for his biting attacks on structures that he deemed pretentious or lacking any social purpose. David C. Driscoll is 88. He's an artist, art historian, art collector, an art teacher, author, and a curator. Okay. He became influential in African American art. Okay. His Behold Thy Son, depicting the mutilated corpse of Emmett Till, was called a lot by a modern-day PETA. Rabbi Rami Cohn, 91. He survived the Holocaust. Okay. He helped rescue 56 Jewish families during World War II. He's born in Czechoslovakia. He moved to Brooklyn, became a respected rabbi, and delivered the opening prayer before Congress on the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, the concentration camp. Joe Diffie. Joe was 61. Okay, and when you think of Joe, okay, 90s music, 90s country music anyway, comes to mind. Okay, he was a Grammy-winning, okay, artist, icon in the mid-90s of country music. His hits included Honky Tonk or Attitude, Prop Me Up Beside a Jukebox If I Die, Home, and Pickup Man. He inspired the careers of younger singers whose names he checked, and their music introduced his work to a generation. Patricia Bonsworth, 86, is an actress turned journalist, acclaimed author of biographical studies of self-destructive figures, including some of her own family members, actually. These are just a few of the names behind the numbers. Okay, without a doubt, they'll be missed. And what's more, we need to remember that I come in here and I tell you what the numbers are. You hear them throughout the day sometimes. A lot of news doesn't even cover them anymore because they're just so large. Okay? But it's easy just to forget these are all people. They really are. They're all people. They're friends, they're relatives, they're co-workers, and they need to be remembered. So, what's hot in the news today? Same that's been going on for the last week or so. More states are easing the restrictions and trying to reopen to some degree, while still attempting to insist on social distancing and wearing a mask. Now, it's really interesting because as these states are easing the restrictions, these are just on the same day that they're easing these restrictions, they're getting a record number of cases that are being reported. Okay. Record number of cases and a record number of deaths. Now, President Trump, he signed an executive order almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, for meat processing plants to stay open, okay, during the COVID pandemic. And these businesses were declared critical infrastructure under the Defense Production Act. Okay. Nearly 24 meat packing plants have been closed over the past 2 weeks due to coronavirus outbreaks, while thousands of workers employed at these plants have contracted the virus. Now, a lot of these plants are in small towns. They're the main employer in those towns, so that when you get a hot spot in a plant, you get a hot spot in an entire town. Now, there's an untold part of the story about the meat inspectors. They go into these plants every day. In fact, hundreds of meat inspectors throughout the U.S. have been diagnosed or exposed to COVID, and at least 3 have already died. Now, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Food and Safety Inspection Service said that 145 employees were diagnosed with COVID, and an additional 130 are under self-quarantine as a precaution due to possible infection. Again, they're in there every day. The 3 who actually died were based in New York, Chicago, and one in Mississippi. Now, nearly 900 workers at a Tyson plant in Indiana tested positive for COVID. Okay. 1,600 workers. 1,600 workers in Iowa processing plants tested positive for COVID, forcing a number of plants in that state to close. Yet every day, there are inspectors going into these facilities where there are known positive cases. People are still going in there. People are still doing inspections. The report shows the inspectors normally lack the proper PPE, personal protective equipment, and its social distancing it's actually impossible because they have to work shoulder to shoulder with frontline plant people. Now, without protective equipment and testing of all the workers, more employees will get sick, and the safety of our food supply is definitely being compromised. And that brings us to the question of the day. Is there a disconnect? Is there a disconnect? It's a strange question, but let's get into it a little bit. The Presidential Task Force on Coronavirus is reported to be winding down its operations. Okay, President wanted to shut that down. That was his intention yesterday. Although today now there's a ruckus about it, and all of a sudden he's rethinking it. What a surprise, because it was getting good ratings. Now, one day after the release of the report, though, okay, showing that the deaths could reach 130,000, okay, by August 1, he was going to shut down the task force. The report came out. There are going to be 130,000 deaths by August 1, and he was going to shut down the task force. Okay? Let's see what that means. Okay? Basically, about a week and a half ago, okay, well, a couple days ago actually, I asked, if you open it, will it come? If you open it, will it come? I discussed that yesterday. Okay? Now, the president's been pushing to reopen the country. He doesn't want to take any responsibility for anything. He really doesn't. He and his task force have already made statements, okay, on the record, formalizing them into recommendations for the states to phase in reopening when they had a 14-day decline in reported cases. Now, that was great. It made a lot of sense. Okay, it was based on science, which is really nice. Okay, however, just 2 days after that recommendation was made by the president himself, the president started pushing the states to open. and started with all those Liberate tweets. Okay, yesterday, okay, new modeling came out and showed that we're likely to have 135,000 deaths by August 1. Okay, when this goes bad and the numbers start rising big time, okay, and they will, the president's going to dump all this back on the states for not following the guidelines. Okay, so governors, yeah, I know it's a difficult position. Okay, he's inciting all these protesters in your states. They're all coming out with AK-47s, okay, armed to the teeth for a protest. Unbelievable. Okay, the police are terrorized this stuff. They outgun the police most of the time. But, you know, when this goes bad, he's going to dump it right back on the governor's lap every time. Now, every responsible medical professional says that you absolutely need the testing to reopen. The governors can't get the testing because the president hasn't invoked the Defense Production Act for testing and for the needed supplies to make it happen. Primarily for financial reasons to keep the major companies, you know, making more money as they borderline price gouge the states and FEMA trying to get testing. Well, we barely right now tested almost, not quite 2% of the population. And the White House brought out a couple of weeks ago some people that said, oh, it's not necessary to test everybody. Not necessary at all. We can reopen without testing everybody. So here's the situation. If you're told it's okay to go back to work, and you already know a friend, a relative, or coworker that has had, or knows someone who has had COVID already, how safe do you feel going back to work each day? And are you relatively certain that everybody in that workplace is going to interact with you and they're not COVID positive? Every day you go back to work because the president says so, the governor said so, it's okay, no problems at all, you don't need the testing. Okay, you go back to work. How safe do you really feel that everybody that you can interact with that day isn't COVID positive? And it's the same question every day for every workplace, for every store you're thinking about going into. Have you been tested? Okay. How many of your friends or relatives and coworkers have been tested? And there's the disconnect. If you're a reporter at the White House, they take your temperature every time you walk into the building and every time you walk into the briefing room. If you're the president or you work directly with the president, okay, you get tested almost every day. His reality is a whole lot different than the reality that you and I have each day. And that's just one of the reasons there's such a disconnect with the president and the reality that the rest of us in the U.S. population experience every single day. So, something to think about. Now, I'll post this video on my YouTube channel, The Real Money Doctor, tomorrow. Again, there's a present every day. There's a link there in the video. There's a present in the link. Something light, just to lighten up things up. People are stressed right now by a lot. They're stressed with staying at home for this period of time. They're stressed because of the money. Okay, the big disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street. The numbers on Wall Street still bouncing around 2,400 range. Might hit 25 every now and then. But no matter how good the stock market might be doing, okay, there's a major disconnect on Main Street, and that divergence is going to be more pronounced as things go bad, and they will. So I don't know if the stock market's really bottomed out yet or not. But anyway, I'll post this video tomorrow on YouTube on The Real Money Doctor. And again, I appreciate you being here. My only goal is to help you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. So I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, The Real Money Doctor. I appreciate you spending some time with me, and I look forward to spending some time with you tomorrow around 7 o'clock. Thank you.